Tough start to the postseason for the Detroit Pistons. They fall in game one to the New York Knicks. What happened and how can they rebound in game two? Let's talk about it right here on Top Title Detroit. Let's go.
Perfect. Perfect. Perfect.
What's good? Welcome to Top Title Detroit. I am Eric Vincent, your host and Detroit Pistons beat reporter for ClutchPoints.com. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time. Make sure you please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Lock in with us here. Run up that viewership. I would really appreciate that support. Tell a friend to check us out right here. It would really mean a lot to me, man. Thank you so much. Let's get into what we're here for. Unfortunately, a rough start for the Detroit Pistons postseason run, coming up short in brutal fashion against the New York Knicks, losing 123 to 112 in game one at Madison Square Garden, where the Pistons had a lot of the momentum kind of pushed in their direction towards the end of the first half and the second half. Maybe not the first half, more so the second half. In the third quarter, a little bit of the fourth, and then obviously that 21-0 run just kind of blew them out of the water. The Pistons had an 8-point lead with just about 9 minutes left in the game. And unfortunately, a lot of those young team jitters and mistakes started to come up alive, and they really bit them in the behind towards the end of the game. The Pistons turned the ball over 19 times. 7, I believe, of those turnovers came in the fourth quarter. And it seemed like they just snowballed one after another, which really just kind of put them behind the 8 ball. When you're playing against a veteran team like the New York Knicks, who do a good job of capitalizing on mistakes, especially in the postseason, it really just put the Pistons on their heels, and they were not able to recover after that. The Pistons really showed that this was their first postseason run since 2019. Again, outside of the veterans like Tobias Harris, Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr., Paul Reed, basically everybody else on the roster had no postseason experience whatsoever. And a lot of it was really showing. You saw the Knicks send a lot of extra attention to Cade Cunningham. He didn't have a bad game in terms of his numbers and what his stat line looked like. But if you watched his performance, you could tell the moment was, I don't want to say it was too big for him, but it took a lot of adjusting for him to get comfortable. Scored 21 points, dropped off 12 assists, had 6 turnovers, and a lot of the crucial ones came late in the fourth quarter, which, again, just kind of derailed the Pistons' momentum late in that second half. Just a lot of mistakes that you can't have for a team like the Pistons. Again, when you're playing against a team that's savvy enough, that has enough postseason experience, they know how to put their foot on the gas and make sure they take you out of your comfort zone when you make crucial mistakes. So when they're missing easy layups like Jalen Duren did at the hoop, when, Asar Thompson's missing wide open dunks, when Cade is turning the ball over, Asar had turnovers, it was a lot of things that they were doing that shot themselves in the foot, and the Knicks took every opportunity to say, okay, watch this. And it really just changed the whole tide of the game. The Pistons had a lot of things going for them in the third quarter. I think the biggest lead they had throughout the game was an 8-point deficit, and a lot of that was carried by some of the veteran performances that we saw. Tobias Harris was huge in this game, and 25 points for the Pistons. I think the majority, if not all of them, came in the first half, but he still played pretty solid defense on Karl-Anthony Towns and in certain other spots as well. Again, 25 points, very efficient, 8 of 13 from the field, 4 or 5 from 3, grabbed 6 rebounds. It was a really impressive performance for Tobias, who, when his perception is that he struggles in the postseason, he did a good job of kind of ridding all of that. Tim Hardaway Jr., 19 points from him, knocked down some timely shots for the Pistons. Should have had 21 points, but for whatever reason, the refs ruled an offensive goaltend on him in the third quarter where he had a breakaway dunk. He gets smacked in the arm by Josh Hart, and they don't even call the foul. The ball goes through the hoop, bounces out of the hoop, and they take the basket away because of offensive goaltend, even though Tim Hardaway Jr. did not touch the ball after it went through the hoop and popped right back out. I don't understand that at all. That was a wild transition that kind of changed a bit of the momentum, but at the same time, the Pistons still got to be able to play better than what they did late in the game. But we'll get back to the officials in a little bit. Malik Beasley, 20 points from him, 7 to 16 from the field, a little bit up and down, but again, hit some timely shots, made some necessary plays that the Pistons needed in some crucial spots to make sure that the lead didn't get too big early in the game and gave them an opportunity to collapse and give themselves an opportunity to beat the Knicks. A lot of things went in a direction we weren't expecting. Again, the Knicks played a pretty good game. Brunson at 34 points, played 40 minutes. Again, regular Tom Thibodeau type game where your stars are playing the majority of their minutes. Karl-Anthony Towns had 23 points, 11 rebounds, very efficient, 10 of 14 from the field. And a lot of his scoring didn't even come from the outside. Like, he put the ball on the floor a lot. Only went to the free throw line twice. And for whatever reason, he was very comfortable with a lot of looks that he was getting. Now, he's very similar to when we're talking about Tobias Harris, where his perception of the postseason is different from the regular season. He did a good job of answering a lot of those calls and a lot of that criticism. He was very aggressive. He was barking. He was chirping a lot. It seemed like every time he knocked out a shot, he was talking trash to the Pistons bench. He was very dialed in. So I got to give Karl-Anthony Towns his credit for the performance that he put on. We saw very, very, very good hustle play from Josh Hart. Put up 13 points, grabbed 7 rebounds, 6 assists, played pretty good defense. Even though he was in foul trouble a good chunk of that game, he did a good job in the second half outside of the play that should have been a foul called on him. He did a good job of weathering that early start that he had where he was in foul trouble to still be productive for the Knicks. OG Anunoby was really productive, 23 points for him, 14 points for Cam Payne, who was a definite difference maker for New York. A lot of their role players really stepped up to complement the stars, and that's going to be a big turn of how the rest of this series goes. So, again, very ugly game to how it turned out. What can the Pistons do now to make sure things don't turn out the way they did in Game 1 when Game 2 comes on Monday? It's pretty simple. Just got to be disciplined and polished in the fourth quarter. And that may sound a little bit easier said than done, but I just think the Pistons kind of took away a lot of opportunities that they could have capitalized on to make sure that they were winning, or at least in a position to win, instead of being down by double digits like they were. For example, like we said earlier, you cannot miss point-blank layups. You just can't do it. You can't have Asar missing dunks. You can't have Jalen Duren, who's got a 6'5", 6'7" wing on him, missing open point-blank layups at the rim. He should be trying to dunk everything that's in front of him when he gets the basketball. He really wasn't that much of a factor in Game 1. Duren was 7 points, 6 rebounds, had 3 block shots, did a pretty decent job defensively, was able to be a bit of a presence, but he unfortunately was in foul trouble. Same with Asar Thompson, who we're going to get to a little bit more in a second. Those front court guys have to be able to step up and hold their own and be not even just productive. They have to be on the floor long enough to make a difference for the Pistons. Duren only played 24 minutes. Asar only played 22 minutes. He had 10 points, 6 rebounds, but he had 5 personal fouls. Now, some of them I think are just absolutely ridiculous. I think the refs really need to find some kind of basis of consistency in this series, because if you're going to call a foul every single time, I whip my head back and forth, Jalen Brunson just jerks his head every single time he has some contact, even if he's the one initiating it, if they're going to call a foul on that every single time, it's going to be a long series for the Pistons, and there's nothing they can do about it. Because for whatever reason, when Brunson is giving an arm bar to his defender, but then brushes his head back and forth, they call a foul. On the other hand, you see Cade Cunningham try to post up against OG Anunoby, and OG is pushing him in the back, grabbing him and pulling him and trying to get him out of position, and the refs don't call anything. The refs don't call a damn thing, and that does not make any kind of sense to me. There has to be some level of consistency in what you're going to say and what you're going to call, because people say in the postseason they let the players play. All right, well, prove it then. Prove it. Stop letting Brunson get off on the cheap fouls that he goats into. Like, you can even see by the way he plays the game. He's very herky-jerky when he's dribbling the ball. Even when he has an open path for a layup, he'll stop and pause and wait to see where his defender is to see if he can get a bump out of them instead of just going up for a layup or trying to find his best shot. He seeks contact more than he seeks buckets. And I hate that in basketball. Foul baiting is one of the worst things that's ever happened in basketball, courtesy of James Harden, courtesy of Brunson, Trae Young, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, like all these guys who just rely on that so heavily. And these are talented guys, too, that shouldn't have to rely on that. I'm not going to go on a tangent on that. The point is, I just want to see some consistency out of the officiating. If you're going to let the guys be physical, do it both ways. If you're going to call cheap stuff, do it both ways. Because it was chippy and physical on both sides. It's not like the Pistons were just crashing out, being physical and over, aggressive with their defense. And, like the Knicks were just playing powder puff trying to score on their own in their own, finesse type of ways. No, they were very chippy too. They were diving on the loose ball. They were grabbing. They were pushing, talking a little bit of trash. Like, it was a lot of chippiness on both sides. And I just want to see a little bit of balance on both sides because I feel like, granted, of course, it's Madison Square Garden. Home teams regularly kind of get that benefit from the officials. But I have a feeling once it goes to LCA, we're still going to see a bit of the same problems because that's what it's been all season for the Pistons. And I'm not really that much of a fan of that. I just want to see some consistency. That's all I want to see from both sides with the officials. I think that's something that needs to be addressed. Hopefully that's dealt with accordingly. Something else needs to change is Cade Cunningham. Cade, you got to be better than what you were, man. Again, the stat line looks good. 21 points, 12 assists, double-double, but the efficiency wasn't there. The efficiency wasn't there at all. 8 of 21 from the field, 1 of 4 from 3. And you could tell a lot of the shots that he was putting up, they didn't seem like he was very comfortable when he was taking the shots. It seemed like they were a little bit forced. It seemed like he was a little bit out of control at times. And it seemed like some of those double teams, the extra pressure, the tension was kind of getting to him. Now, granted, it does unfortunately take away an advantage for the Pistons when Asar Thompson is off the floor due to foul trouble because it takes away one of their extra ball handlers. The first person to come in is Malik Beasley, who's not your primary ball handler. So at that point, you're only playing with Cade Cunningham, who kind of controls everything at that point when Asar goes off the floor. You have Dennis Schroeder, who played a pretty decent game, 8 points, not really the biggest in terms of numbers, but in terms of his impact defensively and his momentum plays, he did a pretty good job. But you can tell in certain spots the Pistons are really missing that extra primary ball handler, or at least somebody that can slash to the hoop and maybe create their own shot for themselves or others where they can take advantage of those double teams and relieve some of that pressure off of Cade. They don't necessarily have that at this moment, and JB has to find a way to get Cade the ball or at least get him into situations where he can get to the free throw line to take advantage of that physical defense that's being applied to him when he's trying to get the ball off ball. You see what I'm saying? Like, it has to be something that they script up to get him better looks because from what we've seen, every single time Cade dribbled off of a screen, they brought that hedge from the big man and they just collapsed on Cade. They didn't hedge and then fall back to the extra body that they were defending. Like, whenever Karl-Anthony Towns helped over the top on Cade, he didn't fall back to Dern. He stayed on Cade that whole time, and then Cade's defender collapsed on him too so they could get the ball out of his hand. And he was making a lot of mistakes, especially late in the fourth quarter as well. The inbound pass where he tried to throw it to Dern, and it went to Karl-Anthony Towns instead. You can't have that. He had another bad pass that got picked off, I think, by Josh Hart. You can't have that. A couple other plays he got ripped up off his dribble. He has to be stronger with the basketball. He has to be composed, and he has to be in position to play his game. Don't play the game that the Knicks want you to play. Play your game. And unfortunately, he kind of struggled with adapting to that extra pressure. You don't necessarily need Cade to be the guy to go out there and hunt, his shot and score 30-plus points. Like, that's not his game. I like that he got 12 assists. That kind of makes up a little bit for his turnovers. That showed that he wasn't trying to do too much. Normally for superstars, when they're being doubled and pressured by their opponents, they don't have necessarily the wherewithal to give the ball up, relocate, and try to find a better shot. No, they try to force the shot that they want regardless of the attention that's around them. Cade did a good job of not forcing shots, but he also struggled with making the right play as a playmaker, which is where a lot of those turnovers came into effect. So we need guys like Asar to stay on the field. You really miss Jaden Ivey in these situations because Jaden Ivey is such a great off-ball cutter that he would be able to take advantage of that. We saw a lot of that in the regular season. We saw that when they were on the floor together, and that's just a big dynamic that the Pistons could really use in a series like this where they want to pay so much extra attention to an all-star like Cade Cunningham. They just got to find a different way to bring in a sense of organization offensively, especially in a half-court set, because they were getting their transition buckets. They were flowing out, getting open looks, but they weren't giving enough in terms of production in a half-court set. They found some good looks, and unfortunately, in some of those looks, they were forcing a lot of shots early too. Tim Hardaway kind of has a bit of a habit to do that, where it's early in the shot clock, and he just throws up a 3 or an early 2, and it kind of opens up a window for the Knicks to then play in transition. You don't want to do that. You don't want to give away momentum swings to the Knicks in their own building, because you saw how rowdy it got in Madison Square Garden. They got to be more disciplined on that side of the ball. You got to be more disciplined on the side of defense as well, because you cannot allow your two most important defenders outside of Beef Stew, who unfortunately I think is dealing with an injury right now to his knee, still waiting for an update with that. But outside of that, you cannot have your two most important defenders in Asar and Jalen Duren in foul trouble super early in the first half. You can't do it. They both picked up 2 fouls within the first, I think, 5 or 6 minutes of the quarter. You cannot have that. I do think one of the fouls was kind of BS to an extent. Like, to me, Asar is defending Brunson with his hands up with his body. But again, he's not going to get the benefit when Brunson is a star and he's selling the contact and just being traumatic and getting that unfortunate whistle that puts him behind the 8 ball. He's got to find a way to be better disciplined with that. He said, it wasn't really much that Brunson was doing that gave him trouble defending, but we're going to have to see more of that proof to show that he's going to be better suited to guard someone as crafty as Brunson in a 7-game series. He's got to be better. He's got to be better. And same with Jalen Duren. You got to be able to be on the floor. Again, we're not asking too much. These guys don't need to be scoring 20 points in a game, but they have to be on the floor long enough to give the Pistons a chance in these kind of games. Because if they're dealing with foul trouble and you're in the fourth quarter, they can't play as free and loose as they want because they're trying to minimize the next foul when they're already at 4 or 5 for the game. That's just too much extra pressure on them. And as a young team, they got to be able to learn from that. JB talked about it a lot in the pregame. He talked about it in the postgame. He said the NBA is basically just about adjusting and learning, where you learn from your mistakes and how quick you can learn and adjust from them. They got to do it as soon as Monday now. You got to be able to take one of these 2 games. You don't want to go back to LCA down 0-2, because if the Knicks come back and they go up 3, that's going to be a big problem. You don't want to be in that circumstances. The odds are not in their favor at that point. So the Pistons need to find a way to steal game 2 on Monday. I think they're capable. I think Cade can be better than what he was. I think Asar can be better than he was. I think the vets can be a little better as well, especially in terms of consistency. Like, Tobias was awesome in the first half, but you got to be able to bring some of that extra scoring and production in the second half as well. And he didn't really do that. Same with Tim Hardaway Jr., same with Malik Beasley. You got to find a way to find a sense of balance for the scoring and your defensive production as well. They got to find that consistency, and you got to find a way to close these games. You cannot allow a 21-0 run while you're up 8 points. That cannot happen in any scenario, especially in the postseason. It's a lot of learning for the Pistons that they got to go through. I think they're built to bounce back. They've shown the ability to do that. But in the postseason, it's a different animal. We'll see how they do when Monday gets here for game 2. Talk to me in the comment section, though. I would love to hear from you. What were your thoughts on game 1? And do you think the Pistons have what it takes to bounce back and get a victory in game 2 at Madison Square Garden? Talk to me in the comments. Like the video. Subscribe to the channel. Let's talk about it. Let's get active for this postseason run, because we got to get the energy going. We got to make sure these guys are ready for what is coming. This is not going to be easy 7-game series. They got to be focused. They got to be dialed in. And I would love to hear how your feelings and your thoughts have been for this series so far. Again, talk to me in the comments, like the video, share the video, spread it around all around. I would really appreciate that love and support. Thank you so much for being here on Top Title Detroit. Sign in and check me out on your social media at I am Eric Vincent. You can follow me on Twitter and everywhere else. You can also follow my work at clutchpoints.com. I just put out an article about Tobias Harris's feedback about the game and how they want to bounce back in game 2. Check me out there, clutchpoints.com. I would really appreciate your feedback on there as well. Thank you again for being here so much. It really means a lot to me. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Go Pistons, and I'll see you right back here again on Top Title Detroit. Peace.